In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking, with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make me get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Hello there. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. I am Ike Ogiamin. This is my channel. Over here, we talk about being better and doing better. And we got a strong emphasis on doing. Yes, a strong emphasis on doing, on the participatory, active, getting in there. So today, the topic is a foil, an excuse to talk about productivity and community. Productivity and community, very important aspects of human life. And every once in a while, we get to hear stuff about the communal mode of work, right? The communal mode of work, especially with I think the millennials are getting blamed for it recently, right? But let's take a step back, okay? We're going to start with some things about what we consider our nature to be as social or communal animals and how that may be related to our survival and how we work. But how's it going, Dr. Thunder? How are you doing? How's the festive season treating you?
I'm doing all right. I got a new colorful orb back here. Thank you to Lori Wallace for that.
I see. Is it just white right now?
Colors.
Oh, it's changing.
It's changing colors, but it looks better. It's easier to see the colors from this angle. See, it's
gotcha. Yeah.
It's going through some movements there. So that was good, and I also had some time off. So I haven't been interviewing, which it really sort of adds up. Sometimes when you're not in the rhythm of doing the usual things, it gives you a little time to notice some other things. So that was it's very, very much appreciated. More time with the family, more unsuspecting hard punches to the midsection from my 8-year-old, and but he goes back to school next week. But yeah, it's my favorite time of the year, and I know that's cliche and everything, but it seems like people are a little more friendly this time of year, so it's a good thing.
Friendly celebration, and this is what brought the topic into mind. Okay, so there's certain things that are already obvious as to where we're going, right? The thumbnail says no communal play without communal work, and then I say down in the title on YouTube it says don't only play with those who will work with you, I believe, or something like that. So we already have Man of Tomorrow in the building. We got Spiritual Logic in the building. Okay. All right. Shout out to you guys. And Man of Tomorrow is already dropping gems vis-a-vis the topic, right? About what your team should be constructed of. But let's start here. Okay. anthropologically, okay, as far as the milieu in which we come up in as human beings, right? We are, shall we say, communal creatures. One way to say it is, we are social creatures. We the idea of being ostracized from the group, and I'm not talking about every individual disposition, okay, because we'll get into the modern times and how that may, shall we say, play itself out. But as an anthropological truth, the idea of being ostracized from the group is very much tied to our it gives us fear, as though we were going to die or something like that. And that's because in order to, as human beings, survive in the wilderness, in order to survive against the predators, in order to forage for food, farm for food, and do things like that as a species, not as one lone Rambo out there who may just be super skilled in all ways and knows how, he knows all the plants in the forest and everything and can survive alone, right? But generally speaking, we need the group. Okay. And this work that it takes in order for us to survive is group work. So, what am I trying to do here? Okay. First and foremost, I'm trying to establish the connection with communal living and the work that it takes for us to survive. Okay, you don't work, you don't eat. Dr. Thunder's favorite quote, right? You don't work,
That's
you
right.
don't eat. And a big part of that work is group work. That's why when you feel ostracized by the group, and again, I'm talking about general here. I'm not talking about you, Dr. Thunder. But as a human species, we don't want to be removed from the group because that means death, right? So, is it fair to say that forget the modern terms right now and forget your personal, shall we say, psychological disposition? But is group work important? Because even in modern terms, it is. It's just that we can hide from the fact that we're doing things in groups, right? We pretend like we didn't build the city and protect, but it's us, right? It's still doing it,
Right.
right? We
Yeah.
build systems, and it's a group effort to keep those systems going. Now, granted, the problem with the group, with the modern day group, is many people can skate underneath and just benefit from the system without actually contributing. But, anyways, Dr. Thunder, any issues with the fact that we're communal in nature and the work that it takes for us to survive and to keep nature at bay, nature from killing us, is a group effort? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I mean, there's a uh, limited effectiveness that you're going to have alone. And something that you say frequently is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you have to go together. And that certainly is the case here. You know, part of my dossier, as you, if you would, if you will, um, is as a church musician, and I've been involved in church my whole life. Uh, my mother started taking us to church when I was a kid, and the older I get, the more I realize how much that whole community thing, how important that is. Uh, Very important, I think. Uh, you can't really do the same things alone by yourself. And though we have technology that will allow us to do a great deal more things, seemingly connected, albeit virtual, um, it still isn't quite the same as sort of doing certain things in person. There's a tactile thing that happens when you're in person. Um, and there's a sort of developing trust that is much easier to do in person than it is
Mhm.
virtually. And all of that stuff plays big. It plays big when you're trying to decide, who are you going to link up with? Who do you trust enough to, trust enough with your sort of shared destiny, because it will be a shared destiny at that point. Who do you
Gotcha.
share?
You mentioned,
Who do you trust? Who do you trust? Because if you don't,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you don't know that, you're going to be in trouble.
Mhm. I latched onto that word because you said it twice before you then said it 4 more times at the end here, right?
Hmm.
You said trust. You were like the building of trust and tactile trust, the community, this, that, the other. And then because it would almost seem like when you started talking about community, you were talking about just the feelings, right? Which
Oh
is
no,
which is I know that I know that's what you mean, but when people say that a lot, they're talking about the feelings. Even when they
no,
talk about things like church and so on and so forth, which really is not about the feelings. Okay, now
no.
you mentioned trust there, right? Trust is this thing which allows you to transact with people in a frictionless way, because otherwise you're going to need to check, you know, every time before you talk to somebody, before you shake their hand, before you pay them, whatever, you're going to like, oh, check their background, check this, check that, look at them this way, put them through a polygraph test, right? It makes transacting difficult. It makes the economy grind to a halt when there is zero trust. Okay, so I think that you're agreeing that yes, there is a need for the community, but also you've added a utility to the organs that facilitate community life. The utility to them is that they facilitate trust, and then trust is removes the friction in the transacting, so that when you go to church, you presumably or whatever other organs that is facilitating your community life, you can go ahead and patronize this particular person or trust that they will do what they're supposed to do, right? So let me paint the picture here, okay? Because we're saying, hey, don't play with those, okay, who will not work with you. The idea of communal play, the all the phone calls you got this holiday season to all the parties, right, that people wanted you to go to, and the time that they wanted you to waste. The idea is, will they help you meet your deadline on the day after Christmas? So I said this in the email that I sent you, Dr. Thunder, but basically the idea is, okay, we are a group of farmers, we are a group of hunters, we are a group of, I don't know, we're Amish or something, right? And we're gonna have our festival. It's communal play time. We're all gonna drink maybe a little too much. I don't think the Amish drink, but you guys get my idea. We're all gonna do things, maybe eat too much, maybe dance, stay up late, do things that are per se not amenable to productivity the next day, right? But when we wake up the next day, we're all going to circle the wagons around each other. We're all going to go raise that barn, go do the harvest together. Okay. If you put it in modern day terms, if you have a deadline tomorrow, okay, but your buddies are calling you to go party, and we haven't gotten to the point yet where we're discriminating the kinds of buddies yet. We're not to man of tomorrow's point yet. But your buddies call you to go do some drinking. Are you going to be able to call them tomorrow and say, hey, okay, well, I guess drinking is over. It's time to go raise the barn. I have this deadline. Let's pull our resources together, and you bring your laptop. We'll meet at this particular place, and then we'll get things done. Okay. Now, can I get a one in the chat if the picture that I painted is making sense? We do have to be communal. We address that. There is a utility to this community thing in the sense that both we can only do certain things as a group, and then number two, we have to facilitate trust so that there's not a lot of friction in transacting. But then there is this idea of celebrating together. There is this idea of coming together, and people emphasize the feelings aspect of it. But they forget the fact that that group of farmers that partied together yesterday are going to wake up tomorrow together and go to the farm. And their deadline is going to be met by the group, right? So is this picture that I painted correct? Are your friends, Dr. Thunder, going to help you meet your deadline? Can they even help you, even if they wanted to? Right? So, and then we can start getting into what we should do about that, right?
Yeah. These days, as I get older, I realize that everything really is about legacy. And that's not just a, $100 word that they throw around, that folks throw around during job interviews. But rather, it's a very important, idea because I can't waste time, and I can't risk being associated with the wrong folks, because I'm not getting any younger, and too much is at risk, too much is at stake. Now is the time for me to make hay, because the sun is shining. So yeah, I mean, I think it's of utmost importance to be very discriminating when you consider who are going to be your friends, who are going to be your allies. You need them, but if you don't choose correctly, that can be quite devastating. One of the shows that we did together was, if you're trying to create generational wealth, don't, what was it? Avoid these women. We gave a nice 2-part show on who to stay away from, and then we also provided a nice, some nice details on what kind of qualities you'd be looking for and the right kind of partner. Well, it's the same kind of thing here. I mean, you're not. Often is the case that you're going to be spending more time with the people that you work with than your family, especially as you're developing, growing, building, and as you're spending all these hours working. I mean, the people that are around you, I mean, it can be everything. It can mean everything. I would even take a job that paid less if I could be around the right kind of people, than one that paid more, where I had to be around a bunch of slumlords and or folks that were not going to help me to grow, to be better myself. If I was the best person in the room, as opposed to being someone getting in, barely getting in, but definitely benefiting from every second. So
that is interesting that you a slight tangent here, since you mentioned the work thing and then you mentioned develop and grow outside of work, or you removed it from the work thing. And this is just something that comes to mind, in the sense that there are people whom are, shall we say, company people. And this is the majority of people anyways. They look at their job like it is their career and it is everything that they do, even economically, right? This is the only thing that they're doing economically. So they're always trying to advance within, quote unquote, the company. And one of the things that I do, or I started doing now, is because of my particular trade, if you will, right? I'm a engineer. So you're an engineer, you get the kind of engineer that I am anyways, you can get a license and you're like an independent person and you have a stamp, you can stamp and sign things and that stamp and signature is needed for things to happen, right? That kind of a thing. So you can kind of treat yourself as an independent business to begin with. But still, within certain organizations, I found that I'd rather stay in certain levels because it facilitated my growth, right? Economically, spiritually, whatever it may be, and then in my outside work or whatever it may be, rather than try to run up to management with those idiots, because you look at management and you're like, what the, and I'm gonna have to be having those lunches with those dudes? No. And practically what you said, which is, I'm trying to avoid being in the company of certain kinds of people, engaging in certain kinds of activity, because it's not going to be to my benefit at all. Okay, so let's continue now with this point of the modern problem. Well, I don't know. Did you have a comment about me?
yeah,
avoiding
let me tell you a secret about the academy. I'm an academic. Okay. Depending on what your discipline is, but I'll say this will be the case about most disciplines, because administration, leadership skills, um, business accounting kind of skills are not uh, are not ubiquitous. They don't exist equally within all disciplines. So, say for instance, if I'm in English, say that's my discipline, and I am able to rise through the ranks to become, I don't know, a dean or area head or director or whatever name you want to put on it. It's probably not going to be because of the strongest leadership or business management kind of skills, because
Interesting.
that's not how they were trained. So often is the case, that you get folks that rise through the ranks because they didn't piss the wrong person off. They played a lot of politics. Um, they did their job well enough not to get demoted, as it were. But there seems to be this thing within education where, as you do a bad job or a worse job, you'll actually get promoted in administrative kinds of capacities. And so often you'll see folks that did a really bad job managing at one level, but all of this other institution was looking for is an excuse or a reason or something that showed that the person had some capability as an administrator. All right. Now, it would make sense not to provide a particular kind of training if your discipline is business management or something like that. Then it's like, hey, what it is that I'm teaching, it will be the same skills that I would use as I was, the the top administrator, right? But that's not the case necessarily. I mean, consider how this was going to work out for musicians, for other kinds of artists, and that's not to say that you'll never get people that are good administrators. It is to say that it isn't by design. You get
Gotcha.
lucky when you get a good administrator. So
So yeah, it is particularly bad over there in academia and these, shall we say, in the arts, perhaps, where there are perhaps other kinds of concerns. Okay, that and other reasons why people get promoted or avoid getting demoted. Interesting. So avoiding certain rooms, has always been instinctive or instinctual for me. Like okay, these people over here, if these are the people I'm going to be associating with in order to have that job, no, no, no. So I 100% agree with you. Now you already started answering the question of, okay, how then do we go ahead?
yeah. I would say, in uh, not to be too terribly hard on the artists, but I would say that this would exist too for stuff like medicine. I mean, why would someone that has been studying, the human body and do all the stuff that you have to do to become a medical doctor, why would they, in abundance, have administrative skills? Why would they have that? They
Yeah,
would. I mean,
the
it's not a
many
it's not a
technical. Mhm,
it's not a natural
mhm,
coupling. I mean, it's not one doesn't exist just because you're capable at the other.
mhm, mhm.
So,
Many, shall we say, STEM fields suffer from that, right? Just the self-selective group of people who go into those things anyways already begins to show you what the problem is.
right, right.
Which is an opportunity for some of us, right? Um, you have already begun to answer the question as to, well, what then are we to do? Your friends are not going to help you build that barn tomorrow. Your friends are not going to help you meet that deadline tomorrow, right? So one way to just, and then you gave the broad outline of like, okay, well, hey, if we want to use the analogy of the kind of woman to avoid and the kind of woman to go towards, we said, hey, Proverbs 31, okay, she's industrious, she knows what's up, she's quite market savvy, she goes out there, she does ABC, blah, 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 all those kinds of things. Okay. Now, one step though, before you get to the place where, like practitioner said, Kobe only parties with those people who is going to wake up early the next day, right? But you want to at least make it clear to you want to be at least cultivate friendships that understand that you have particular demands on your time. Okay. Well, this is not a very great example, but you and I were in the CME. We were in a conference in Vegas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we know we're busy people, right? You know, I'm a busy guy, right? So you know that, okay, Ike's gonna show up this time, and then the rest of the time he's probably gonna disappear. Okay. And it's not like, oh, after conference time, we're gonna go hang out and then and eat dinner and then drink and then, oh yeah, you wanna go, and then you call me the next morning early to go, that kind of a thing. Actually, even on the last day, I remember I actually didn't show up for the like I was at Starbucks, right? And I was working.
Mhm.
And there wasn't a question in your mind as to, well, why did you come to the conference only to go working on the last day of it, right? Point being, you want to have the kinds of people around you as a result of your action. You have made it clear the kind of person that you are, and you have vetted them as well. Make it such that they know the value of your time, and they know that you're gonna be disappearing every once in a while, or now and then, or whatever, to work. Okay, which gets me into the next point, which is this: the kinds of there's that whole thing about business deals getting done in the golf course. Okay, not everybody is doing C-suite business deals. Fine. But even if you look at certain tribes, okay, like the Igbos in Nigeria, for example, after they do that whole community thing where, they've vetted each other and they know each other because, this family knows that family, blah, 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 they've done their version of church, right, to facilitate the trust. The place where they do their brainstorming, that phrase you don't like, the place where they do that ideation, the abstractions, is while they're sitting, drinking beer and eating goat meat together, right? So that beer festival that you see them doing, okay, it's different. It's not the same as other people's beer festivals. It's kind of what I'm getting at. That golf, uh, that round of golf these people are playing is not the same. That meeting at a conference, that, shall we say, lunch or that dinner is not the same. So aren't these some of the avenues by which some of the more productive people have found to be able to play but still work? So what I'm saying is this first solution is to work while you play. Does that work or no?
Yeah. And this is something that I've heard you say. It's just this idea that people are always this work-life balance business and whatever, and people are quick to say, well, hey, should you really be answering emails when you're on vacation? Should you really be doing X, Y, and Z? And the thing is that some folks, that's just how they are. Their mind is always on their task, what it is that they need to be doing, and it's not unhealthy. Okay, so I think one of the reasons why people are quick to point that kind of stuff out is because they themselves likely don't enjoy what it is that they do, and they see a vacation as a way to totally get away from what it is that they do for a living. And that isn't the case. If you can consider the kind of job that I have, everything I do is other than the online content, but most of that, half of that is all is music related too, right? But everything is music. So when I'm on a gig and stuff, yeah, it's work, but I enjoy what it is that I do. And So yeah, so the play work sort of, is it play, is it work, that kind of thing is an interesting sort of nuance. One thing I wanted to say, this is a little bit of a digression. When I invited you to come to the CME, and shout out to Donovan Sharp for his hospitality and generosity. Um, so it was you, me, and Dr. Doug. We all went, all had our own rooms, and um, the conference was a great conference and everything. But I was I was testing you by asking you to go.
Testing.
You know, I mean, I wasn't thinking of it as a test. I wasn't like, okay, let me see if he's going to do this or not. I wasn't doing it in that way, but it was like a test, right? It was part of like a vetting process, right? So it's like, okay, now I'm going to see this dude in person, and then we'll collaborate some more, right? And but the fact that you said yes, and there were certain details that were sort of nebulous at the beginning of that,
Hmm.
that wasn't really a problem. So all of that stuff kind of gave me certain ideas about the kind of person you are. And then of course I knew you were going to be working between stuff. And then we did like live streams and stuff when we were there. Maybe when other
Yeah,
folks
yeah,
were
we
like
did
hanging
two.
out and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
did
did
too.
two live streams while
Yeah.
there. So it was the individual work. There was a collaborative work also going on as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we pause at trying to steel man that disdain that people have for you working while you're supposed to be playing. Okay. Okay. One aspect is you said, hey, maybe these people do not like what they do, hence they're thinking that blah, blah, blah. I always like to say, well, what's the difference? That is another way of me saying what you're saying, which is I don't see, it's like when people sit there in the cabana, okay, not answering emails, I'm wondering, like, what exactly is the difference between me and them? And because me, I will sit there in the cabana answering emails. The emails, are they killing me?
Right.
No, it's rare that I'm ever in the freaking cabana to begin with. But if I'm there, hey, great time to answer these emails. Nice scenery, whatever. Maybe, hey, maybe I'll have a cocktail. And boom, the device is there, and I'm answering the emails. So that's on the individual side of things, in the sense that we don't see the problem at all. We're like thinking, oh my God, these people are crazy. Okay. But then there is the steel manning of the idea, which is to say, okay, there is something here that is pushing the general population to think this way, which is they, and this is not conscious on their part, okay? The general public, not conscious by definition, right? This is not conscious on their part. They are doing that thing of, hey, we only trust you if you're able to, or we want to see you sacrifice for our communal time, right? In other words,
Yeah, yeah, that's a
we
good point.
we want you to sacrifice, and if you don't sacrifice, we don't trust
Yeah.
you. Now they're not thinking this through logically, rationally, or consciously. This is just the impetus in the back of their lizard brain somewhere. Well, not the lizard brain, it's a mammalian thing. Okay, somewhere in their mammalian feelings, they're, oh well, this person can't really be trusted, they're not sacrificing. But then again, the point is, you're not going to help me build my barn tomorrow, right? So it's not
Nope.
like, if I sacrifice for you, what are you going to do for me, right? I'm not sacrificing towards anything. So this is there is something valid to their point, though, right? That they are scared that if you're not sacrificing, now this is a low level thing, right? And in terms of, again, it's fairly unconscious, it's fairly mundane, it's fairly average. But this is, average people are the most people that are out there. That's what humanity is. You're going to be dealing with average people, and average people don't want you to answer phones in the emails in that cabana because they think you're not sacrificing for them. And if you're not sacrificing for them, how can you be trusted? Meanwhile, you said the opposite, which is like, anyways, go ahead. Any point there as to their concerns?
Oh, wait a minute, I'm muted, I think. Okay, now I'm not. Okay. I think it was a really good point about sacrificing for the communal time. Okay. So here's my thing about that. There are very few people that I will listen to that kind of talking point from. All right. One of them would be my wife. And the other one would be like my parents, my my family, I'm not going to listen to that point from someone that I work with. Most people, well, the thing is that people that are my friends, they're going to understand that talking point is not going to work. So they wouldn't even try that talking point. And by the way, thank you, Nick Penn, for the big $19.99 super chat saying salute Ike and Dr. Thunder. Thank you very much.
Interesting that you mentioned your wife there. Not the obvious reasons why you would say that. People whom know you, because you do need that community that keeps you accountable and that checks certain things in you. Now, these people are vetted, and it is not just automatic. By the way, you say your parents or your dad or whatever it may be, but it's not automatic that any dad, right? So it's not just some kind of people. Just because your quote unquote blood doesn't give you license. 100%, right? For sure. Like that whole blood, therefore you have a say in my life. The blood thing is what makes me watch you closer to begin. Like I'm watching you closely because that means you think you have certain access, certain rights to me and my time, right? And you're gonna try to use this perceived access and rights and whatever. So I'm gonna watch you very closely. I'm not no. It's not about just blood, therefore you can talk to me. No. Okay. Now it is interesting about the whole wife thing, in the sense that there's also like a communication thing. Just to segue slightly as to their feelings, and then there is action. And about 90% of the time, depending on your relationship, if your relationship is healthy, 90% of the time, your wife is not actually trying to stop you from taking action. Okay? She's trying to feel a certain thing, right? And she's trying to check to make sure that in her way, that things are still okay. Okay? And it's not that she's saying, don't work, okay, or work should now be secondary, or whatever. It's a feeling she's after. And for those of us who know how that everlasting dance goes, you have to dance that dance. It'd be a huge mistake on your part to drop the work or whatever it may be. And it's also a huge mistake to ignore the feelings because you're like, facts don't care about your feelings, whatever. That's you, not her, right? I don't know if you wanted to comment on that particular tangent or not, but when you mentioned the whole family thing, it kind of came to mind.
I mean, I'll be honest here. This is something that I struggle with. I'm wired a certain way, and I realize that ultimately what's going to create comfort and a sort of fuzzy, warm feeling is if I get out here and slay these dragons so that they don't, you know, engulf our house in fire. Um, and so that sort of that's really large in my mind. And so sometimes when conversations arise that seem to minimize that or put it out of focus, it's sometimes hard for me to probably respond the way that I probably should. But I'm also aware that that's a deficiency, um, and I try to, probably not particularly effectively. I try to come to the middle, as it were, from time to time, but it's uh, it's challenging. I mean, because like every minute is accounted for in some sort of way. There are very few times over the course of the year where there's a lot of time to kind of sit around and spend a lot of time, you
Mhm.
know, discussing things, entertaining certain things. But it is important. It is something that you have to address, and if you don't address it, at least it's in some way, it's going to end up becoming a problem. So,
Indeed. Indeed, indeed, indeed. So we agree that these people are that the thing that is driving them is that they don't think that you're sacrificing for the community. But then again, it's like, okay, well, then you have to make sure you vet this community such that it is a community worth quote unquote sacrificing for. And yes, I'm going to show up for this conference, but the community quote unquote knows that I'm going to be working to blah, blah, blah. And we're going to work together. We're going to play and work, right? Even if we do decide, as I was saying, okay, well, let's go to that certain tribes. Uh, there's certain groups. I mentioned the Igbos, for example, right? There's certain people who do the communal thing, but then they're also they're communally successful, right? Um, and I'm saying that the reason why this is the case is they do that trust thing very well in the sense that, and perhaps we could broach the whole family and this community thing that I'm about to say together. They do the trust thing very well, whereby, okay, you're from that village, okay, you're from this particular state, you're from Imo State, you're an Igbo guy in Nigeria from Imo State, okay, cool. We're both blah, blah, blah. We say a few words together, we kind of now know what to expect from each other, okay? This again, this kind of cultural bond facilitates trust. Okay, it makes it such that I don't have to vet you too much. It makes it such that I don't, and this is what leads to people kind of dealing with each other. It's not because of just pure nepotism, pure affinitism, as they call it, just people liking each other more than the outside group. Is that the Igbo guy doesn't really know how the outside group operates, or doesn't have the. If you have the choice of, hey, here's I can operate with this guy over here. Okay, I can operate with Mike over here. He's from the same state in Nigeria. Okay, he's fresh out the boat. We know what to expect from each other and how we operate, right? Or I could go over there and go try to vet out this other person, pull out his FBI dossier or whatever and do this for 2 years before I know what to do. What are you gonna do? Path of least resistance. You're just gonna go with the guy that you trust. Now, this just doesn't happen. They actually do that community thing where you will go. This person's wife goes and meets that other person's wife, and they come together. It's not a
mhm.
surprising thing. Shout out to the whole marketing department type of thing, right? The whole your family is your marketing department. By your family, I mean really your wife, right? She's the one doing the marketing. She's the branding. She makes you look responsible. She goes out there and reaches out to the other family. She's the community person, right? She is that mortar in between the bricks, right? Ideally, which speaks to one of the roles that, anyways, if that role is kind of clearly understood, it helps to reduce the friction between what we're actually pursuing. Because if she's actually doing that, then she understands what the big overall big goal is, right? Now, this family meets the other family, and they meet on Sunday for for dinner, whatever. And there's this, they have their New Yam festival once a year, and this big group come together. And again, they're drinking beer, but they're not just drinking beer talking nonsense. Okay, it is about 99% business with these Igbo guys. Okay, now they're the business tribe of West Africa. That's kind of what they're known for. They don't necessarily focus on education as much. That's the Yorubas and some other people, right? But what they focus on is business, and they focus on these communities of people that they can trust. And not just anybody is going to be part of that community. And when they're there doing their whole marketing and branding and meeting together to eat and drink, they're talking business. And the women understand that. And they don't mind it, as long as, after all, everyone's enjoying my goat soup and drinking my Guinness, well, whatever, or my palm wine that I brewed, whatever it may be. Then it's all part of the same milieu, the same soup, and that's how these groups tend to be successful. I don't know if you had any thoughts as to that kind of a mode. It's definitely more communal. It is actually tribal. I'm talking about a particular tribe. It is not something that happens very much here in the West, if you will. But perhaps there are certain insights that are in there that you might want to
Sure.
pull on.
So first, let's acknowledge the super chatter, Spiritual Logic, aka Hulk, $20 super chat. Great content. Got to build on Nick Penn. LOL. Group productivity. Salute, brothers. Big money. Big money. And remember, we will take your EBT. We will give you half the cash value of food stamps. And we'll also take super chats. All right. Yeah, and I think about, doing the online content that I do and the sort of collaborations that I do. Case Closed we have, and that's our Sunday show at 4 with Ramil, Amir, and Chantel Simone, Ike, and Solo, all of which are people that I like personally. They're folks that I can have good conversations with, folks that I laugh when I have conversations with. Our interactions on Getting Ish Done. This it's work. Please don't misunderstand. This is work, but we definitely enjoy this work. And men are designed to work. And the greatest fulfillment that we can achieve is through work. And that's just how it is. So being aligned with others that you enjoy working with and that you can laugh, that's kind of like playing. And when I was when I was a kid, started playing saxophone. My dad is he was a great saxophone player, and so I had an unfair advantage in that I lived with my teacher. I got 3 lessons a week and an attentive ear on the practice room, though he didn't call it a practice room. He never called it a practice room. Matter of fact, he never said, "Go get your saxophone. It's time for a lesson." He never said, "Go in this room over here and it's time to practice." No. What he said was, "Go grab your horn. It's time to play." And it might seem like a psychological trick, but I started when I was 6 years old. So taking a sort of natural inclination that a child would have and the desire to play, and in particular to play with their father, and sort of steering that towards something productive. I think that was profoundly uh, wise. It was very clever. It was very clever. Um, and I think so that kind of shapes the way that I think about work. In my mind, I'm thinking that work should be something that it's some in some level you should enjoy. And to the extent that I don't enjoy it, and I don't mean that I have euphoric titillation at every moment. I've often told my students that what makes a great student, a great researcher, uh, is really strong muscles right here. Because of all of the sore neck, the soreness in your neck you're going to accumulate, you must have strong muscles there. So uh, there's a lot of this that is laborsome, that is boring and all of that, but the end product, the getting through it to the end, that's when you can start to experience that enjoyment and that real fulfillment, because you stuck with something and kept going. And laughing along the way is like its own therapy, because it makes it so that you can deal with the monotony, you can deal with the aspects of it that aren't your favorite aspects, right? And since we live in a fallen world and nothing is perfect here, yeah, I mean, you're not going to have high sense of euphoria everything that you do. And honestly, I'm not sure that that's what heaven would be either. Which is an interesting sort of idea. I think there's
I
this.
like that I like that you brought up the heaven thing, because I think it goes, there's a thread here when someone asks what are you working for, and I want to then ask us to look at the word work in the sense that you are saying it, and in the sense that majority of people hear it. Okay, let me not presume what you mean. But for
Right.
me, work, and this is all kind of tied to the whole heaven thing, okay? So if you're trying to attenuate yourself towards the highest, towards the good, if you will, and if the good, whether we are after all in a, shall we say, phallogocentric Judeo-Christian milieu where the good is the word, the articulated speech. In the beginning was the word, and the word was a God, blah blah blah. That kind of thing, the logos, right? And you're trying to strive towards that. You look at all these hierarchies and what exactly is, shall we say, common to all these hierarchies. Shout out to Jordan Peterson. And you're trying to mold yourself towards that truth. Okay, that to me is no different from what work is. In other words, it's not something that I go out there and do, and then the rest of the time I'm doing what exactly? You know what I mean? Like, for me,
Right.
being and work are the same thing. So I'm not
Yep.
working for
Yep.
anything other than the most highest religious, moral, metaphysical, whatever it is.
Yep.
That is what work is. It is not for that. It is that. It and again, shout out to Jordan Peterson, because I think me and Jordan Peterson share a certain kind of personality type where it is all about behavior. It is not these propositional logic stuff. So my activity is what my faith is what my
Facts.
spirituality is. It is
Facts.
not some kind of there is no separation or boundary. So
Absolutely.
perhaps you may want to elaborate, because you were talking about the heaven thing, and then I saw that comment. I was like, okay, well, you want to elaborate on what the work is for you and why you see it that way, and why this kind of a question, what you're working for, how you would explain that, if you will.
So this is interesting. See, I consider what it is that I'm doing as an act of worship. So work is worship, right? Play is also worship, actually. But it's like the word liturgy, as in liturgical, as in church. The church service. Protestants talk about church service. The sort of early churches, the churches that follow the sort of liturgical practices, the smells and bells churches, as it were. It's all about liturgy. Well, liturgy literally means the work of the people. Which gives like a different sort of angle on the sort of purpose of congregating. The purpose of congregating is to work. It's to work, right? And the work is worship, right? So I consider what I do, like when I'm playing, when I'm on my instrument, when I'm teaching the class, when I'm driving in my car, everything as an opportunity to express that sense of wonder, that sense of awe. This is one of the reasons why I paused when you described, when I asked you the question about, what do you see your purpose as being, and you said being, right? It's like, and then there's no real separation or difference between being and what it is that you're doing, right? It's all kind of the same thing. It's like the physical expression of being is what your body can do is the doing. It's like all the same thing. Your mind thinks, your spirit wonders, or is this sort of source or whatever, and your body does things. It's like all this. I mean, that's what your body's created to do, is to actually participate in action. So it's like all really kind of the same. It still boils down to the same thing. And so really, why is work and play any different in that sense?
No, it's not. And work and play, by the way, are not so separate. I always say that, whether you are a baby banging sticks together or you're Elon Musk trying to build rockets to go to Mars, well, what's the real difference? Okay, like, well,
Right.
fundamentally, what exactly is the difference? Okay, we're just human beings
Sophistication. The only difference is sophistication.
Yeah, you just learn to play better. You start just banging the sticks ineptly, and you found a way to do it better. And you just stop playing with things. In other words, that imagination, and then the bringing of the imagination into being. Now, the whole question of, and that's why I say that all that propositional stuff is not very interesting to me. I find it to be, again, part of the reason I don't want to take the conversation. We're landing the plane anyways on this part, and maybe we'll have a second part to this conversation. But I don't want to take the conversation too far off field. But uh, to Leroy's point here about beliefs, right? Well, number one, I say if you want to talk about things that are received, okay, you cannot get away from that, right? Number one, in the sense that if you wake up, come out of your mother's womb as a biological organism, that thing, this organism that you are, is received through millions of years of, experience of happening, of the universe happening. Okay. And you have 5 fingers. You don't have you don't have wings. So all that stuff is already received, if you get my point here. Your brain filters out reality in a certain way. It's received. The biological versus cultural argument to me, sometimes it's just kind of pointless because point is stuff is received. That's number one. So that point is granted. However, experience really is where everything should be at, not in these propositional truths. So when I say me being and attenuating myself to the highest, it is not some kind of list of beliefs, uh, or not at all. How could it be? I'm not here. I'm not here thinking that's what I should do because I went through some logical propositions and therefore it's what I should do. I'm saying you, I, again, haven't received what we are and being human beings and we perceive the way we perceive and we all come through a cultural milieu, all that granted, but still experience should be at the center. Now, having said that, I know that that is not going to be, I know there's a reason why some people think Jordan Peterson is stupid. Okay, I listened to an interview with him with Lawrence Krauss, for example. Lawrence Krauss is a physicist, a theoretical physicist, very smart guy. And let's say the Lawrence Krausses, the Sam Harrises, the Richard Dawkins of the world, not so much them, but especially their fans, never quite understand what the hell this Jordan Peterson guy is going on and on about experience, because to them it's like, why did you say that? Why are you talking about rescuing your father from the belly of the whale and that the highest of the, and they're just like, that's all nonsense. But the point is, there is a certain, anyways, there's certain again, I don't want to get the conversation too far off field, if you will, but shout out to, do you mind reading the super chat?
Absolutely. Wallace Safira with the 10. What is that? R. What's it is? I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure what the R is. What currency that
It,
is?
it is Brazilian, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The living warrior doesn't fight only with swords, but with his beliefs and faith that needs to be stronger than diamond. This is the faith of the living warrior and the living church. Resilience key. Thank you very much. Okay, so
Indeed,
just the
indeed,
currency.
indeed.
Yeah, he said in the comments just the currency of Brazil. Yeah, he says
Yep.
Brazilian reals or
Yes.
is
Yes,
that an
yes.
L or an I? Yeah.
It's an I.
Okay.
I.
Rias. Rias.
Mhm.
I don't know.
So as we start to land the plane, this question here is appropriate. Someone came in late saying, what does the title mean? Okay. So what does the title mean so far? Basically, we're saying this. In order to keep the predators at bay, in order to actually facilitate either civilization or survival as a group of just a nomadic tribe out there, we have to do group work to survive, work to be, okay? However, there is a problem in modern times in the sense that people only emphasize the communal aspect of play, right? They want you to sacrifice in the play. They want you to come and hang out with them, okay? But tomorrow they're not going to work with you. In the past, or shall we say not necessarily the past, but in certain kinds of modalities of being, the more communal mode, when we party the night before, we're going to wake up the next day and we're going to go to the farm together and we're going to help each other pull our weight. Will your friends help you meet your deadline after they helped you drink the vodka yesterday? And if they cannot, then how should you operate in the world is basically what we've been talking about. And I think some of the ideas that will come from that are kind of self-evident. You wanted to say something, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah. You were asking the question after you're drunk. Are they going to help you meet your deadline? And here's the answer to that question: nope.
Nope.
So
Indeed, indeed.
since since that's the answer, uh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's rhetorical. Yeah. So.
It is it is an interesting fact though when I encounter these certain kinds of questions, the questions about the working for something and things like that, which for me are not questions to me, but it seems like the people who have those questions should have the answers, right? It's like it's like if it's a question for you, then you should have the answer for yourself. Some of us just don't work for nothing. Right? We're not. It's just too. That's too hard to be thinking about separation. There's no separation. I'm always striving for
Mm,
unity. Okay.
yeah.
Um. But that's another topic for another day, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. So Dr. Thunder, if we could collect our thoughts here, we could collect our thoughts.
Sure.
We're gonna vet the kinds of people, right? Vet the kinds of people and make sure that they understand the value of our time. Okay. We're going to vet people so that when they see us doing work in the cabana, they're not thinking, oh my God, this person is not sacrificing for the group. They understand that, okay, the group needs work. Okay. Beyond, and even if we just keep it at a pragmatic level, we do need work. And if I'm going to be sacrificing for the group, then the group needs to be something that the group needs to sacrifice for me, right? They need to help me either build the barn or at least respect the fact that I'm going to be working while I'm over there playing with them. And then there is the whole playing with people and making it work as well, in the sense that, hey, when you go ahead and have that dinner meeting or that lunch meeting, or when you go ahead and you go for this particular festival, you should be using that time to do the creative aspects of work. Okay, you're going to do some brainstorming, or maybe you're going to do some feeling out of certain people, see how their character is, that kind of a thing. Can I work with this person? Can I not work with that person? Right. This is how you solve that problem of this disaggregated, individuated world now, where people, even if they wanted to, cannot help you meet that deadline because they're not in the same field as you're in. They're not in the same, they don't have the same schedule. They're not in the same kind of mode at all. So people these days have to be actually be smarter. Now, unfortunately, that's not just going to happen. No, people are what they are, which is mainly dumb. Okay. So, but you can strive as much as possible to expand your boundaries, to be conscious, because the world of the communal work and then communal play, you don't have to be too conscious. Those things are going to happen for you. But these days, you actually have to be conscious with the company you keep, whom you play with, because work still has to be done. Okay. Now, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, Dr. Thunder, but that's a kind of my way of wrap. I think we'll have a further conversation to kind of maybe unpack the whole work being thing more. Because right now we kept it pragmatic, but maybe we'll address some of the questions that came up in the chat.
Yeah. I mean, again, the vetting of the people that you're going to be around. Um, I mean, that's never going to end. That's always going to have to be, uh, a part of part of what. I mean, it's always going to have to be like almost the first step in any process. Is you have to look around and see who is it that I can depend on, who's around here. If I mean, and you can, all of the metaphors about like going to battle together and all of that kind of stuff. And it seems like maybe cliche, and maybe it seems like way over the top and stuff. But the reason that those analogies are used is because in the same way, uh, if you're going to battle, actual battle, that you need to be able to depend on these folks that are around you. I mean, you're still you're in the same situation. I mean, your success and your failure is very much tied to, their reliability, their dependability, the kind of person that they are, um, and then what kind of pressures that they're going to apply on you.
Talk about resolutions and people keeping each other accountable, because this is New Year's. People like to make New Year's resolutions. I have no issues with that. If it's something to remind you to check up on certain things, no problems with calendars in that sense, right? But you want to tie that in with how then, in other words, part of a New Year's resolution should always include people in a certain sense. To the degree to which you're going to make New Year's resolution, then you're like, well, are the people in my life, the people that I interact with right now, going to help me in that resolution? Are they going to take away from? Are they going to help keep me accountable in a positive sense, or at least in a negative sense? Are they going to hold me back? Will I need to cut out certain people up from my life, or would I need to bring in certain other kinds of people in my life in order to help me get to these goals? How does the whole resolution accountability thing tie in with this aspect of communal work, if you will? In two
Oh
sentences.
yeah, this is this is great. This is great. So first, let me talk a little bit about the resolution thing. I remember being quite resistant to the idea of resolutions. And it took me a while to come around to where I was like, well, maybe this is not actually a bad thing. And then I started to see it as another one of these sort of naturally occurring reset points that happen over the course of a calendar year. So one of those reset points is at the beginning of the school year. Everything seems new, right? It's new students, it's new this, it's new that. And a matter of fact, the academic calendar is the same as the church calendar, right? The academic calendar just borrowed the church calendar, right? So there is that sort of kind of rhythm. There's a kind of a renewal in the spring, right? The spring is kind of like a new thing happening, right? The summer, or the end of the summer, beginning of the summer, or the end of the summer, there's these naturally occurring points. And of course, there is New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So the new year coming in. And yeah, you're going to have a lot of folks that are going to promise, they have these fitness goals. And so all of the gyms will be jam-packed for maybe about a month. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to say stuff that sounds like that. But for about a month and a half, it'll be pretty packed, and then it'll start to thin out, right? But still, even if it's just for a time, I think reevaluating things, and in this context, what we're talking about, reevaluating the people that we're associated with. We've got a lot of dead weight. There are a lot of people that are dead weight, dead wood. And it might be really hard for you to come around to being able to get those people out of your life or get certain associations away from you. But until you do that, you're going to have a lot of trouble, because it's like you're, I don't know, you're out in the middle of the ocean, or no, let's make it a lake. Because an ocean, you could float in an ocean, but in a lake you can't float. So at least I don't float. So if you have somebody, go ahead, say it again.
No, I was just gonna say shout out to Wallace for another. That is Wallace, right?
Super. Yes, Wallace Safira. Work for an ideal group or community worthy. Yes, thank you very much. But if you're in the middle of a lake and your boat capsized or whatever, and you got somebody else with you, and they can't swim, you don't swim that great, but you swim enough to save your life. But they can't swim and they're panicking and stuff, so then they're trying to pull you down. You just have to get away from that person, or else they're going to kill both of you. You're both done. And sorry to say it like that, but that's just the reality. Or you can try to knock them out. Maybe you knock them out, then you can get them to chill out so that you can save them. But it's you can't save everybody. So you shouldn't even try. You shouldn't even try. And who are the people that are going to keep you accountable? Um, yeah, that's a serious question. And if it's not obvious to you if a person is going to be a positive influence or not, that might be a sign. I'm very clear on the people that are uh, positive to me, and I'm very clear on the folks that are not positive. So
I
you know
see.
you know what's happening. Cats know what's happening. You just have to. This is your chance to make better choices.
Indeed, indeed. Your chance to make better choices, your chance to help yourself be held accountable, okay, by bringing certain
Yeah.
people in, okay. It is very important, okay, and it doesn't have to be a whole tribe of people either. Like, and that's the thing, it's not like you gotta have, you gotta go find all these different people. It's like, no, one or two people, okay, in your life, and then also the opposite in terms of cutting people out. It's not like you got to cut out a whole bunch of people. One person could do a lot of damage. That you need to kind of reduce the time that you spend with that person, because it's not like this person is a bad person, okay, if I have to say that, but they're not helping you deal with the negative sides of yourself, is one way to look at it. Okay. Like, we all have our
Mm,
problems, we all have our weaknesses. Okay. And if somebody is there reinforcing your weakness, or somebody is there not helping you, not helping you kind of channel your energies in a more positive direction, then that is a bad thing. Okay. It's not that this person is a bad person, but it's like, hey, when I'm feeling a little negative, you magnify the negativity, and I cannot afford that. Okay. Now I have to deal with my negativity, but I can't have somebody there that's going to take, every little mustard seed of negativity that comes up in me and then magnifies it. No, that's not going to help. That's not going to work. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that the topic today was rather self explanatory, but I think that there are aspects of it that need to be, shall we say, expanded upon. The aspects that have to actually do with this work thing. What is this work thing? And what is this work for something stuff? What does this community thing actually really mean? Okay, this community and the building of trust. It is not just a feeling. The feeling, as a matter of fact, I would say, is part of just the feeling is the opium part, right? The shout out to Karl Marx. Religion is the opium of the masses. Uh, the feeling is just the part that facilitates the actual work. Okay, and the work is the important thing in a certain sense, right? Um, until next time, Doctor, you have any something you want to promote before we take it out?
Well, I mean, this is my last show for 2021, and it's been good working with you, Ike. I look forward to 2022. I think our show is still growing and developing and everything, and so we really appreciate the support of everyone's support throughout. We're going to keep it coming. Yeah, I'm not doing a Thunder's Thoughts this week. I'm just waiting until 2022 to keep that, to get it moving. But once 2022 gets here, I've got a bunch of bangers, and I'm actually talking to Minister Jap right now about a show that we're going to be collaborating on his channel. Um, and so that's going to be pretty cool, very exciting. I've got a Melanie King interview coming up next week. Uh, I've got some other pygmies. I think of the genuine variety, not the turncoat variety. So yeah, it's going to keep it interesting, and some great musicians and everything. And I'm inching inching towards this show, kind of combining a lot of the stuff that I do together. It's going to be a late night kind of talk show format. That's going to be very interesting, working towards that. But Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all of that good stuff. Whatever you celebrate this time of year. But most of all, got to get some ish done.
100%. And with that, we're out, ladies and gentlemen.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what's a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what was behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannon could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising, convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.